Hello, good morning. It's Kate bringing you this week's Monday Mission. So, I had asked several of you which topic you may want to focus on this week. And so the choices were all or nothing thinking, and we teach others how to treat us. And the results were pretty much split evenly. So, I am going to address both topics eventually, but this week's focus is going to be how we teach others how to treat us. So there are two takeaways I want you to get from this video. The first is that even though that title, we teach others how to treat us, implies that we have control over other people's behavior and their choices, which unfortunately we don't, right? So we can only control our own behavior and our own choices. So I really want you to have that in the back of your mind when we're going through all this, is that we can't control other people. We can't force them to treat us a certain way. And that can cause some stress when we feel like we can, right? So just take that out of your mind. We can't force someone else to do or say anything that we want, right? But we can portray ourselves in a certain way and present our boundaries that lets the other person know, hey, I'm not going to tolerate this. Or, this is a boundary that I have set for myself and I'm not going to allow you to cross it, okay? The other thing I want you to take away from this is we're going to be talking about examples of things that we say or do that teach others how to treat us and some reframes for those. How can we say those differently or portray those differently? But I will never ever tell you that you can or can't say something or that you can or can't do something, right? I just want you to be curious about these things and be like, you know what? I do that. And I'm sending this certain message and maybe that's why this happened at work. Or, wow, you're right. I really do find myself doing that in my relationship. And then that person doesn't realize that I have a boundary and they cross it and then I get angry at them and they don't even know why I'm angry and it's a whole thing, right? So I just, like always with all of these topics that we go through each week, is I just want you to be curious. Are you doing some of these things in your life and what is the impact of them when interacting with other people? Okay, so we're going to go into some examples of things that we do, how they can be perceived by others, and then we're going to go into reframes of it. Okay, so the first thing that I think a lot of women do is we have trouble saying no, right? We want to take everything on. This is the people pleaser in us. We want people to think that we can do it all and do it all well and balance it all, which I hate that word balance, but we'll talk about that another week. Okay, so saying no and taking too much on, right? Which causes us undue stress and things we don't need to have in our life, and that can overflow into how we are with our families and just how we are in general, right? Another thing that we do is we often minimize compliments. All right, so someone gives you a really nice compliment and you immediately minimize it. You immediately give reasons for why that actually isn't true, right? And what that says to the other person is, oh, yeah, you're right. Let's say, so I give this example. A good friend of mine at work had actually complimented me, a really, really nice compliment. And she said that I phrase things in a way that make it really understandable for people. And that's such a huge compliment. And I immediately was like, oh, no, I just try my best to explain things. So I minimized it. And what that says to her is, she's not really confident in her own ability, right? And, maybe she's right. Maybe she's not that great at it, or it gets the other person thinking like, oh, they doubt the compliment that they gave, right? They start thinking about, oh yeah, you're right. Maybe that's not the case. So we're going to talk about compliments. Another thing that we often do is saying sorry all day long. We apologize for everything. So either we apologize for something that we actually didn't do, right? Or we over apologize for something that's really minor and doesn't need to have this huge apology for it, right? Something else that we often do, and these are silly little things, but over time they you can see how they would send a message to other people of what we think of ourselves and what we will allow from them. So just little things like often saying, does that make sense? Does that make sense? Does that make sense to you? I do this all the time. And one way to look at it is if you're genuinely just asking, does that make sense? With some confidence, then maybe that's a phrase that's okay for you to continue to use. But if you find yourself saying, like, does that make sense? You're questioning whether you explained it enough, A, or the other person could think, does she think I'm an idiot? That I can't understand what she just said? So sometimes it's in how you say it and it's how you present it. So that's something to just think about. I do find myself saying that a lot. Does that make sense? And sometimes it's from a place of I'm just truly asking if what I just went over made sense to the person. But sometimes it comes from a place of questioning my own ability and my own confidence in whatever it is I'm explaining. Okay. Other things we do, exclamation points in emails and text messages, and using words like just or only, or I just wanted to check in to see if you got that thing done. Meanwhile, that thing is due tomorrow and you need it right away, and you're, minimizing maybe the urgency of whatever it is in order to be more likable to the person, to, not upset anybody, not to get anybody angry. So, I'm not saying that we're going to be harsh in our tone to other people and what we say to other people, but just keeping in mind that some of the things that we do and say, again, let people know how they can treat us, right? So what can we do about it? Some reframes for this. So when you're presented with something or asked to do something that you really cannot take on and commit to at the moment, some things you can say, if it's difficult for you to just flat out say no, right, is, I'd love to, but I have another commitment. That's it. You don't have to explain the commitment. You don't have to justify the commitment. That is plenty to get that boundary across. I really can't take this on right now, but you're doing it in a respectful way. Or, you know what, you're so sweet to think of me, but I have a lot on my plate right now. I'd love to do it eventually if it's something that you could do down the road, right? All right, some other things we can do when taking compliments is just to take the compliment and say thank you. I know, groundbreaking, right? But it's so difficult to do. It is. So that's one of my challenges for you in one of these missions, is to, next time someone gives you a compliment, just say thank you. Thank you. That's all you have to do, right? When we're saying sorry all the time, when we're over apologizing, right? Let's say that you are late to something, or you're, running a little bit late. Instead of saying, oh gosh, I'm so sorry that I'm late. Hey, thanks for being so patient. Thanks for waiting for me. That's all you have to say, right? It gets the point across. You're not being rude and expecting them to just be fine with you being late. You're acknowledging that you were late, but you're not overly apologizing for it, right? Or if you find yourself apologizing for asking questions, I'm so sorry to bug you. I'm so sorry to bother you. I'm so sorry I'm asking so many questions, right? What you could say instead is, hey, I'd love to get your thought on this. What do you think about? And then ask your question. Do you see the difference? So it's just a little way of that you're saying it that shows more confidence, that shows that you do believe in the question that you're asking, and you believe in your ability to understand the question and interact with them in a certain way, as opposed to just overly apologizing for something, right? So that's another way you could reframe those I'm sorries that we're constantly do. And when we say, does that make sense? So like I said, if you're saying it in a certain way, then go ahead and continue using that phrase. But if you realize, I am really coming from a place of where I'm sort of minimizing my authority or my, expertise in that area, you could say something like, do you have any questions? Or did I explain that thoroughly? And then that way you're not implying that they can't understand it, right? You're just asking if there's anything else you could do to explain it further for them, okay? So those are some reframes for those. I'm going to be posting all this week some other different ways to reframe things and things that we do, but I just wanted to explain those a little bit, those takeaways that we can't control other people's behaviors, but we can portray ourselves in a way that lets them know what that boundary is and what we will and won't tolerate. All right, so that's your mission. Should you choose to accept it, as always, share with me anything that comes up for you this week, and we'll talk soon. Thanks.